We got stood up. Is this the first time?
Well, it depends. We've gone on, and then a few minutes later they come on. So we'll see if he's able to.
Yeah, you never know. He might pop in. I figured. I mean, we bailed on the show Thursday, so we had to jump on.
Right. We couldn't miss.
Yeah, we weren't going to miss. But I guess you guys are going to get the locals segment now, so I don't know what we're going to do on locals tonight. He might be late, but I mean, he's like, the guy is a vagabond. Like, he could possibly just have no internet service right now. I have no idea.
That's true.
But anyway, everybody, please hit like and subscribe. You guys know the drill. So I went to the Catholic Identity Conference over the weekend. That's why I missed Thursday, because I left. I worked a night shift Thursday night into Friday, and then left straight from work. And when I booked my room, I saw the Catholic Identity Conference was at the Hilton DoubleTree in Pittsburgh.
Did you book at the wrong Hilton?
So I land and I get an Uber, and I'm like, all right, take me to the Hilton DoubleTree. Brings me to the Hilton DoubleTree. I go inside, and they're like, sir, we don't have a reservation for you. I'm like, here's my confirmation number. They're like, we don't have that in our system, so I don't know what you're talking
You're like, don't you know who I am?
I'm like, wait a minute. Is the Catholic Identity Conference here? They're like, what the heck is that? They're like, no, sir, it's not here, you know? So I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm looking on my phone for my hotel reservation. It's at a different Hilton DoubleTree. So I get an Uber and I start heading to this other Hilton DoubleTree where my reservation.
Sometimes.
So listen, so now I'm in the Uber. Now the first Uber was $30 to get to this first Hilton DoubleTree. The second Uber is $50 to get to the second Hilton DoubleTree. I'm in the Uber, and this guy's got like devil tattoos all over his arm. And so I think I found out they were Nordic, but I had no idea. And he's like, so what are you doing in Pittsburgh? And I'm like, I'm here for work, dude. Like, the guy had like a pink dyed ponytail, and I didn't know if he was, I didn't know what he was. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm just here for work. I wasn't lying, technically, you know. So we get to the second Hilton DoubleTree. I go in.
Well, you didn't want to ask him if Mary was his personal mother and intercessor.
No, I should have wore this shirt just to get a rise out of people. So I get to the second Hilton DoubleTree, and they have my reservation, and I'm about to check in. I'm like, so is the Catholic Identity Conference here? And they're like, no.
Oh no,
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, oh, like, what are you talking about? So now I go on the conference website, and I'm like, where is this? And it's at the Hilton DoubleTree. It's at a different, dude. There's 4 Hilton. Like, if you come to my house and you like in my area, there's several Hiltons, but they're not the same Hilton. Like, you'll have the Courtyard Marriott, or it's like a specific name to go with it to distinguish.
Yeah, imagine that the Courtyard Marriott is not the Hilton DoubleTree.
No, but I'm saying, like, the Hilton, it'll be like the Hilton
DoubleTree.
Yeah, it would be something else. It wouldn't
yeah.
Exactly. It wouldn't be the same name. So I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm booked at a hotel that the conference is not at. I'm now on my third Uber. So I had to call the other Hilton where the actual conference was. Luckily, they let me transfer my reservation over there, and they still had rooms available. So I transfer my reservation over there. I take my third Uber
of the Hilton DoubleTree.
So now I take my third Uber to go to the other Hilton DoubleTree where the conference is. That one cost me $40. I added it up. It was more money. It was more money in Uber than it was for a one-way ticket to Pittsburgh on the plane. Yeah, I know. That's the other thing. There's four Hilton DoubleTrees in Pittsburgh, and it's a small set. That it just was baffling to me that there were that many different ones. So I finally get to the conference. I missed Candace's main talk, but I caught the round table that her and George Farmer had with Michael Matt. It was pretty good. I get there, and I'm like, okay, who do I know? Because it's a weird thing to go to a conference when, I mean, I met a lot of fans there. Like, throughout the entire weekend, people were coming up to me, but it's always weird because they know you and you don't know them, you know? So I found Michael Hitchborn. He was standing up against the wall somewhere, and I scoped him out, and I saw him, and I just run over, and I'm like, oh my God, I have a friend. Let's go. So he was essentially my wingman the whole weekend.
Oh, by the way, at some point tonight, I want to know what the nickname is.
That's a local segment only.
Okay.
That's not, I'm not telling anybody. Not on here. It's a little too PG-13 to be told on here anyway. You got to break up the DoubleTree monopoly like electric companies back in the day. So Michael Hitchborn was pretty much my wingman the whole weekend. Him, Matt Gaspers, and Bartholomew on Twitter. I won't say his real name because I think there's a reason he doesn't use his real name on Twitter, but he
doesn't want to be associated with you.
He hung with me the whole weekend. And I was invited out to dinner on Saturday with Michael Hitchborn, the Catholic Unscripted crew, somebody who writes for the Chronicle. Like I was invited out to dinner with like a
respectable group of people.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
And the guy who took us out to dinner, I don't think he was prepared for me, you know.
Bro, no one's ever prepared for you. I wasn't prepared for you.
I don't think he was really prepared for me, but I got to meet Catherine Bennett, who is the third person in Catholic Unscripted. So we've talked to Gavin, and we've had Gavin and Mark on the show, but we never got to meet Catherine. So I finally got to meet Catherine. They gave their talk. Their talk was phenomenal. So they kind of split it up 15 minutes apiece.
Mm-hmm.
And Catherine was hilarious. And I said it to her at dinner. I'm like, I guess I can't say women aren't funny anymore because she had the whole room in stitches. It was very funny. She made jokes about eating cats, and she was like very
Haitian jokes.
Yeah, she made jokes about Haitian immigrants, and it was pretty risque. But yeah, she was funny. And we were talking. Man, it's rough when I get a couple of beers in me because I just get very loud. Catherine's awesome. She and her talk was really good. Then Mark's talk was like so out of left field. Nobody was expecting it, but I had no idea. Mark lost his daughter a few years back, and he kind of told that story of losing his daughter. And it was, when he got off stage, I just ran up to him and hugged him. I was like, holy cow, man, I have to get him on to actually talk about that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So especially because he was willing to share it there, I'm assuming he'll be willing to share it on air. But yeah, he just kind of told the story of what that was like and the way God helped heal his family and stuff, and just, getting through a major loss. But like the theme of the whole weekend, I met one of our fans who recognized my voice from a mile away, is blind. And as soon as he heard my voice, he was like, that's Anthony, So he came over.
For the record, everyone, you don't have to have super hearing to recognize his voice from
and I'll be honest, a few other people,
when I met Anthony in person for the first time in Steubenville at a street fair, I heard him from a block and a half away while a live band played at 10 feet from me.
So a few people had come up from hearing my voice, because I was loudly talking to somebody, and they're like, I know that voice. But yeah, so the guy was blind, but he wasn't born blind. It developed in his 30s.
He watched our show for the first time and
destroyed his eyesight. So he developed.
Wait a minute, chat. Okay, something went wrong with the chat for a second, but it's back now.
Okay. So he lost his eyesight in his 30s.
To be fair, even a deaf person could probably hear Anthony from a block away.
The weirdest thing I saw this whole weekend, there was a girl in the airport with a walking stick. She was blind.
Yeah.
And she was using sign language with a deaf girl. And I don't understand. I was like, I don't get it. I didn't understand. So I don't know if her.
Was the deaf girl using sign language back?
Yes. It was the oddest. I tried to get a video of it because unless maybe she was holding somebody else's. The girl had glasses on. She was holding a blind walking stick, and she was doing sign language with the.
Anthony's thinking they'll never notice me videotaping. She's blind.
Yeah, it was too far away. I think I might have like a quick thing. I'll try to send it to you, but yeah, it was like watching Helen Keller. It was
Holy
very
smokes,
strange.
Anthony saw Helen Keller.
So, yo, you know, Owen Benjamin. Somebody sent me a clip of him talking about Helen Keller and how Helen Keller's not real, and he's like, okay, if she's deaf and she can't hear anything, how come she talks with an English accent? And it's like, he's got a good point there. Like, why would she have an English accent?
This just goes to show you that English people can't hear worth the crap.
Well, I think that there's a lot of things that we've been told that are just nonsense. And I don't know. I'm so cynical at this point. I'll believe any nonsense. So what's ASL?
American Sign Language. He doesn't do that. He does Italian Sign Language.
Yeah, a lot of that. So yeah, so that was odd. But so I was talking to the blind guy and just talking to him about losing his eyesight, and he actually said that like losing his eyesight is what kind of reinvigorated his faith, and he winds up meeting his wife afterwards. So the whole theme of the weekend seemed to be how God kind of reveals himself to us through our sufferings, you know, and it really, I met several.
Is meeting your wife after you lose eye, do you like?
He just was saying he thanked God for losing his eyesight because it led to him meeting his wife.
I'm just saying, you'd always be wondering, did I marry a 5, 6?
That's true.
An 8?
That's true, right? You don't know.
Especially if you had sight before then, right? You have something to compare, but you don't have the other part to compare.
I wonder if you're being able to touch their face. I mean, you know, that's right. You saw Ray Charles in that movie. He would touch people's hands and you could tell right away if the girl was heavy or, you know,
or if you really learn how to do echolocation really good, you're like,
yeah, I don't know about that. But, yeah, so just yeah, that was kind of a theme through it. And I think Catherine also, her talk was on how her losing her mother to cancer kind of brought her back to the faith too. So yeah, it was all in all, it was a very good weekend. Met a lot of really good people. I got to have lunch with Tim Flanders and Matt Gaspers together.
Nice.
You have to have a trusted friend that would be most honest with you. That's true. Lesson 1 of marriage: always say you married a 10. I disagree.
Hold on.
You never want to. You gotta convince your wife. You gotta marry a 10, but convince her she's a 7.
Oh,
that's what you want to do. You gotta keep them humble. I'm just telling you guys. You don't trust me. You want to marry a 10, but convince her she's a 7. That's the route. And then this way here, they're always, you know, a little. You don't want them too confident. All right. Yeah, that was
okay. Next topic.
Anyway, yeah, so I got to hang out with Tim and Matt Gaspers, had lunch with them. I met a lot of, yeah, she said, yeah, like a beautiful mid. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want to go for.
Well, if I want a video of you saying that to your wife.
Oh, yeah. So
you should run RCA as a side hustle, but like not all the official stuff, just all the stuff they should know, like the indulgence inflation rates, right? You know.
Wait, what did Molly say?
This is what your kids should not be watching. This show.
No, I'll tell you right now. My wife and daughters hear constantly how beautiful I think they are. I'm just teasing. Look, if you're just meeting a girl, you want to talk like that. You got to neg. Like you don't want to build a girl up too much when you first start dating. After you're married, that's different. But in the beginning, no girl likes that guy that comes on, brings roses, and tells her she's beautiful.
Yeah, there's definitely no reason. That's a whole subgenre of movie, right?
I don't think it is. I think that honestly, if you really look at what women actually like in their genres of movies, it always involves cheating.
So what this means, Mel Gibson needs to get you for what women want too.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking like The Notebook, right? The Notebook, she's in this stable relationship and Ryan Gosling comes along and she cheats on her stable relationship with Ryan Gosling. The Titanic. She's about to marry the guy and she cheats on the guy. Like that's romance for women. They cheat on their man. And it's usually like a stable guy who wants to take care of them and give them a good life. And they got to go with the dirtbag who, you know,
That's true.
he's a bum from the lower class levels of the Titanic, and he just wants to
specifically Irish bum. I mean, that's even worse.
This is just generally what women are into. It's very odd. Oh, she's Molly. Yeah, am I wrong? Lesson one of manhood: never watch The Notebook. I'm just going by, you know, that, or, you know, it's don't tell me that I don't know women. Women don't exactly go for what you think they would. You think they will because they present an image, but they don't usually like the nice guy. I never saw
saying they've just put up prophilicity.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so to wrap up the weekend, yeah, so we went out to dinner, had a good time with everybody. I actually tried to play matchmaker while I was there. I met, I don't know if I should say who. There's a very famous Catholic's daughter that I met, and she was single and 26, and I was talking to another guy who was single, and I'm like, I just started a conversation between them and then walked away. And I'm hoping some sparks fly, but I won't say who it was because
not even in locals.
No, I'll tell you in private. But,
okay. Was it Kevin James' daughter?
No, nobody that big. This is like a Catholic, like a stalwart in the trad community's daughter.
Oh, okay. I bet I know who that actually.
Yeah, very prominent traditional Catholic. But yeah, it was
next Faith and Phil, Titanic. How to tell she's for the streets.
And the thing is, I know plenty of people have talked about this, so this isn't even like an original thing we're coming up with. It's just, it's known that it's very odd what women in film find romantic, you know. But man, I can't believe this guy blew us off. Like, I did zero show prep because
come on, how's that different? You just didn't send me 20 links, that's all.
Yeah, we usually have a few stories to jump to. I don't know. I mean, we could talk about
we want to talk about World War III or the Appalachian Apocalypse, or
well, we you know Jeff Putnam, right, on Twitter?
Yeah.
So he lives down there, and he's been posting all sorts of stuff that he's got. So the crazy thing is, you're seeing all that insane footage out of the Carolinas,
Eastern Tennessee, yeah,
which is unusual, right? Like that. It's not a typical thing. Like for a hurricane to reach that far inland like that, or is it
once a century or so? Yeah, the last happened in 1916. Even more rain back in 1916. There just wasn't near as much of a community, right? 100 years ago.
Yeah. What's interesting that I'm seeing about that whole situation though is how people are coming together. Like, you're seeing people really, like, so if we always talk about what'll happen in an apocalyptic situation, but that's not what they're dealing with there. They're dealing with a natural disaster, and a natural disaster, I really think neighbors come together. It's similar to what we were talking about when we did our 9/11 show. I see everybody coming together, and you see humanity at its best in a situation like that, you know.
Did you see Jeff's most recent tweet though?
No.
You're talking about now, like, weird creepers are starting to appear, and like he's been out in his front yard with his gun and things like that. So I think you're right to a point. Like, in a situation like that, everyone does come together, but that doesn't last forever until people start to take advantage of it. And you heard about that in Katrina too, right?
Katrina, it was right away though. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
And look, it's sad to say, but it does matter where the thing happens.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Like, it matters what community it happens in, right? It just does. It's sad.
A rural, more close knit, in more in a traditional sort of sense of community. Yeah, that they'll pull together more than like
your urban
community. Like,
you're going to start seeing looting going on and things like that, you know. So when I talked to Jeff told me him and all of his neighbors are just pooling resources. They're helping each other out because a lot of people I saw, even my first instinct was like all of us should have a month's food supply and water and stuff like that. But a ton of this stuff floated away. People had food and it just got washed away and they lost it all, you know.
I have a month of emergency food supply, but it's in my basement.
Yeah.
You know, if we were to be flooded out, it'd be gone. You know, if I didn't get it out, but
yeah. Now was this like just immediate flash flooding? Because I wasn't paying attention.
Yes. So what happened is the hurricane obviously hit the coast, lost a lot of strength in terms of wind, but it slowed down when it hit the coast, and it collided with the low pressure system right over eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina that was coming the other way, and the two just stalled out there and dumped all rain from both systems in the mountains. So you had, you know, I don't know the rain amount, but you had like a dozen inches of rain happening in a couple of hours coming down the mountainsides. So it was, you know, roads were rivers, you know, entire sides of mountains were collapsing into mudslides. I mean, it was just nuts.
I saw people saying they were like 30 feet above sea level and it was still.
Yeah, there's 5-story buildings, you know, 50 foot tall buildings that are underwater.
That is so insane to me. Holy cow.
Well, you had dam failures. So now all the water behind those dams is cascading down too.
Wow, man. That's why like people think you're nuts for prepping, but bad things happen, man. Like bad things just happen. What do you think's going to happen with this longshoreman strike?
I think its timing is interesting. Right? No, I mean, how do you time contracts to end like that? I don't know, but
well, I think it's bad for Kamala. No.
Yes,
I think it's very bad. I think it's
her as strong enough to deal with something like that, right?
Not just that, like if it really does last, right? So, all right, so today's day one of that strike. You see people already panic buying and flooding Costco and going nuts. And if it continues on for something like a month and you actually start having food shortages and supply shortages, and because
it would be a lot like the first 6 weeks of COVID.
Yeah. It's not, look, people are making it like it's going to be the apocalypse. It's not. I saw one guy saying like, this is what's going to happen. Then this is going to happen. And it's like, settle down, bro.
And it will just take time to reroute those ships to the West Coast. You know, it's going to take quite a bit of time.
It's only the East Coast.
It's only the East and Gulf Coast.
Okay. So it's from Texas to Maine.
Yes. Yep.
Essentially,
they could even theoretically get ships in through the Great Lakes and through like the Great Lake harbors like Duluth by us and stuff like that. But that's all going to take time. You know, and then like, are the ports on the West Coast ready to handle all that increase? Probably not. But they could also dock in Canada or Mexico and truck it over too. So it's going to be super inconvenient and a pain in the butt. But yeah, it's not the end of the world.
You're still going to get, I think the biggest issue would be fuel, because we import a ton of fuel, right? A ton of oil. So like the refineries would be basically scraping the bottom of their barrel.
And strategic reserves were depleted over the last year and a half by Biden, right? To lower fuel prices.
Wow, that's right. Oh man.
And now a war and
now World War III is
kicking off in the Middle East. And those strategic reserves are meant for the military in such an event.
Man, this is interesting. It's always, look, the thing with what's going on over there. Well, we'll stick with this for a minute. So the whole idea of it being the apocalypse, I don't think is happening, but there could be some major inconveniences coming. It could be a lot like it was during COVID. So you're going to have a hard time getting toilet paper and, you know, things like that. That's why
prices are going to rise on a lot of things. Meat's going to go up, you know,
inflation's going to go up, things like that. But it's terrible for Kamala to have that kind of a fiasco going on right before, as an incumbent, essentially. And she's supposed to be pro-union. Now, if she sends in, like, if the government has to go in and arbitrate here because it gets so crazy and break the strike, the unions are going to hate her, right? Now, Now these guys are looking for a 77% pay increase over 7 years, which is an 11% raise every year. That does seem pretty high. But I mean, we've seen a 30% increase in inflation. Like, I don't know if
here's the thing. They said no to a 50% increase.
The longshoremen.
Yes, that was offered to them, and they declined that.
Yeah. Over 7 years. I mean, I'll tell you, we usually get, I think we get like a 5% raise or something. You get like 3% on your check and the rest go to your benefits or something like that. I mean, 11% is big, but I do also think we've come up on an insane spike in prices over the past couple of years that I think all unions are going to have to step up like this and start saying, hey, we need major increases for our, I don't know if I think in the long run, it'll be good for other unions, but unions, like I'm in a union, but unions are kind of terrible because
they are these days. Yeah.
They reward laziness. They reward, you know what I mean? It's really,
for instance, the guy, the spokesman that, you're seeing on the news everywhere, in one of the clips, he was wearing a pair of sunglasses.
Yeah.
Though they were, it was a $1,500 pair of sunglasses.
Oh yeah. The union.
So the union bosses, I mean, they're like the mob. In many cases, they were the mob.
Most of the time they are. Yeah. If you knew what happened with my union in New York, with the paving union, I don't know if I should tell this story.
Is it connected to Jimmy Hoffa?
It's connected to my family, is what it is. It's connected to my family.
We'll say that for the locals.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's a little too rich to tell on YouTube. Well, basically the government came in to break it apart because they caught some shenanigans going on. And instead of the delegate stepping aside and letting things continue on, he started his own union. He goes, yeah, now we're going to have one without government supervision. and it worked. And basically now that union exists with no government supervision at all. It's not part of Luna. Like Liuna is Liuna. It's like the United Unions of whatever, of America, North America or something. And they were like an oversight over all the unions. Yeah, I want a yacht. I think my boat's done, to be honest.
It did almost kill you a few times this year.
Yeah, I had to get towed in the last time I used it. And it's towards the end of the season. So you're just like, I don't even care about this stupid thing.
Like, this is next year's problem.
Yeah, it absolutely is next year's problem. I'm hoping when I drop it in the water next season, it sinks.
Insurance claim.
Well, I mean, I would never do it on purpose, but I'm just saying, like,
you have to know the insurance company's like, Italian last name, Long Island. Nope, gotta deny this one.
Yeah, you have no idea. Boating insurance is nothing like car insurance. It's not like if an accident, like they fight you on every little thing. It's so annoying. Like if you have an accident that they can say is your fault, they won't pay, even if you have full coverage. It's not, like if you have a car and you accidentally leave it in drive and it falls off a bridge, like even though you left it in drive, it's still an accident. The insurance typically covers stupidity. If you have homeowners insurance and you leave a candle lit and you fall asleep and it lights the house on fire, they'll cover it. It's, they cover human error. Boaters insurance doesn't do that. Boaters insurance, if they can say it's your fault, you're not getting your money.
It's like my concealed carry insurance. If I get in a shooting and it's not my fault, they'll pay my legal bills. If I get in a shooting and it is my fault, I'm screwed.
Well, are you part of the NRA?
No, gosh, no.
No, I thought that was a good thing to do, like to be part of the NRA. Like
the NRA is a bunch of fuds, a bunch of boomer fuds.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
No, I got their USCCA for that. What insurance though, man? This storm, they're
not going to cover it.
Well, unless they had flood insurance.
Oh my gosh, man! And who's got flood insurance?
But I mean, even the non-flood stuff, like insurance premiums have been going up year after year for a few years now for housing and business insurance, and this is just going to make it way worse.
So Long Island had a catastrophic flood. Nothing like what they're dealing with now.
Right. But earlier this summer, you mean?
Yeah, so it was a couple weeks back, and my brother's house, the entire basement filled. The first floor had like 4 inches of water in it. It destroyed his boiler, completely wrecked his house, like destroyed it. His neighbor had to put like 200 grand into repairs. Like that's how it was, like 150,000 in repairs to fix everything. And my brother has been waiting on because Kathy Hochul gave some relief to it. So he's been waiting on this to go through for weeks now. The kid's got no hot water. He's been showering at my mom's house. He's got to get his boiler fixed. He's like, it's going to cost him 10 grand. And my brother's gone through a lot of crap. He was laid off a lot. I feel awful for him. But just that alone, his homeowners won't cover $1 of it, because if you don't have flood insurance, it's like
and you can't get flood insurance unless you're in what is considered a floodplain, which I'm guessing you're not.
What's crazy is my house is not my house is actually up on a hill, but I had my gutters running next to my house, next to my foundation, and that
seeping through the foundation. Yeah,
that seeped through my foundation and it flooded my basement. I had to eat that one. Then a year later, and I could never get the smell out. Like once your basement floods, if you don't rip everything out. So a year later, my oil burner blew and flooded the basement. So that I was able to put a homeowner's claim in for. They don't cover the burner.
No. They
won't cover the burner. They'll cover the damage that the pipe broke and whatever was damaged from the pipe breaking, but they won't cover the burner itself. So they gave me like 20 grand. And I wound up doing the basement myself. Like I had an abatement company come in and rip everything out, and then I rebuilt my basement myself. And with the leftover money, I had to buy a new burner. Yeah, insurance is a nightmare. Gents, any thoughts on doing a show on traditional church teaching Thomism concerning immigration? There's a lot of fake news out there.
That'd be a good show to do with Nick.
Yeah, Nick would be good for that. I mean, a lot of it has to do with subsidiarity, and a lot of it has to do with all entities have the ability to protect their borders. I mean, it's just absurd to think otherwise. And when you really think about what's going on at the border, like it's just human trafficking. It's all it is. And Father Nix is texting us.
Yep, just got it.
Yeah, well,
I'm not surprised. Have I heard of attorneys on retainer? I mean, I've looked into having one just for whatever Anthony says. So, and we always have Mark.
Yeah, that's true. We got Mark. Yeah. So now, all right. So now the Middle East. I honestly just think all of this is just ways to escalate the situation. And part of it makes me think it's to get us involved in it so that we're in a situation and it has something to do with the election.
I definitely think that Iran actually has shown pretty good restraint up to this point. I mean, Israel, it seems like Israel has been trying to goad them into something ever since October 7th, right? And Iran's been like, no, we don't want to get involved. And I think they just felt like they finally had to, right or wrong. They just felt like they finally had to.
Yeah. And you just see all the war hawks, everybody.
I mean, within an hour, Lindsey Graham, Mike Pence, Mike Johnson, all of them.
And it just all comes down to this warped Protestant theology, as always.
Yeah.
All of them. But yeah, I don't know, man. It feels like they're setting us up for something to disrupt the elections. Now, if we get into some major kind of conflict, are they going to? Now, does Joe Biden step down and they put Kamala in because they? I don't know, man. That's crazy. Because like Joe Biden is not capable of handling this.
Well, either is she. But yes, I know what you mean.
I don't know. All of this was. I just don't believe anything they say anymore, man. I'm so jaded. I don't know.
The thing is, like, if they're doing it to help Kamala win, it is the height of irony than all the Republicans that are pushing hard for us to take military action.
I just
You know
don't
what I
think
mean?
I just don't think those guys like the Lindsey Grahams and Dan Crenshaws and Mike Pence's, I don't think they've realized how much the party has changed. Like, I really don't think they realize that the sentiment in this country, for especially people who call themselves Republicans and conservatives now, we are so done fighting foreign wars. Did y'all see Mike Johnson posted "Pray for Israel" and Classic Thea's quote tweeted with a pre-55 prayers for the videos Amish.
That's a good move. Oh, that's classic.
It's perfect, actually. It's the prayer you should be praying for them.
Yes, it is. It really is.
Yeah, I don't think any of those guys realize how much. What's crazy is if you think about what the Uniparty has done in the past 8 years since Trump, they've blown any goodwill conservatives had before, right? So conservatives were always the war guys. They were always the patriots who wanted to stand up, but because they did so much gaslighting us over the past freaking 8 years with everything, they turned their own base who would have supported them against them. And now what do they think? They're going to get these liberals to go and fight their wars? You see recruitment is at an all-time low. Nobody wants anything to do with this. There's guys that are stuck in there probably just dying to get out of there. I don't understand what they were thinking with this.
I think it's also, I mean, as we saw with, or as we're seeing in Ukraine, like war now is far different from what it was even back, at the beginning of Afghanistan and Iraq. Like, you don't need as many hardcore, like, real men to be boots on the ground. Now you can deal with, a blue-haired, he, she, they, piloting flying a drone to go, suicide bomb someone, basically.
Do you think that they had to keep some kind of skirmish going on in Afghanistan and now Ukraine just to keep up with military technology?
I would say it
almost like a workout, right? Like, so you don't go into a fight without training. So you got to keep these little skirmishes going just to see what
the problem is. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan are completely different and fighting a completely different enemy than like a war between Russia and Ukraine, or between what would maybe happen between Iran and Israel. So if anything, it's actually hurt our ability to fight a near peer style of conflict, because we retooled our entire military to fight an insurgency for 20 years. So I think Iraq and Afghanistan were kept simmering, honestly, just to line the pockets of the defense contractors.
Yeah. Military industrial complex. Yeah. So now, do you think they are doing this proxy war with Ukraine in order to try to make up for because we really did have all of our military defense towards this insurgency thing. Like, we need new weaponry. We need new everything. We need to figure out what we're up to.
So Russia and China are probably a decade ahead on like hypersonic missiles. You
think so?
Yes, without a doubt. I mean, U.S. military officers have said as much. They're at least a decade ahead on hypersonic tech. So I do think the war in Ukraine is one, to kind of whittle Russia down. And we're willing to use Ukrainian lies to do it. And two, also to, I mean, and you see this historically. Germany supported Franco in Spain to test out their dive bombers and to test out, blitzkrieg style warfare. The U.S. has done it. All major powers do it. So I do think we're also doing that to test new tactics, new technology. We're seeing now with new tech.
Right? All right. So James is saying that we would lose a conventional war with either of them.
And if we can't end it within 2-3 weeks with a shock and awe style campaign, we would lose. And that's only because well, I shouldn't say only. It's mostly because we cannot manufacture simple things like artillery shells fast enough. And we're seeing that with Ukraine. Like we can't give Ukraine the artillery shells they need because we don't have that manufacturing ability. Russia does.
All right,
Russia's,
we don't, right? But if you turn the U.S. war machine on,
no.
like we
We've
did
talked
during
about
World
this
War II.
before. That
Well,
machine
let me ask you
does
this.
not exist.
Well, it doesn't now, but it didn't before World War II either. It's
But the backbone was there. The manufacturing capability was there. It is no longer here. We don't have the metal we would need. We don't have the smelters we would need. We don't have the men
yeah, we get
trained.
all of our steel from China now. We get all Chinese steel.
Or
It's insane.
German steel largely, but yeah. So like we don't have the people. We don't have the same thing behind, we can't send people to the moon anymore. It's we don't have
Anymore.
I knew I shouldn't have said that. We would not be able to spool it up fast enough to win such a war.
Dude, I still want to believe America. Like, I think we would lose because of the will of the country. I want to think that we're still at the top of the technological end of things, no?
But it's not about technology. Outside of those first few weeks, modern war is a war of attrition. We saw that with World War I. World War II ended up being that. I mean, once the German Blitzkrieg failed and once Operation Barbarossa stalled out in Russia, it was attrition. And Germany lost because the Soviet Union had tens of millions of men and America had tens of millions of men, and they did not.
Yeah, I think World War II would have ended differently if Hitler doesn't turn on Stalin, right?
Yeah.
Like if he doesn't turn on Stalin, that was like the biggest mistake he made. He was just so far overextended. He thought he could do it in 2 months before the winter hit. Once that winter hit, they were finished. The German soldiers did not have any of the they were not prepared for a winter there. They were all underclothed. They were in spring clothing. None of them had the equipment they needed to fight that. And Russia just had like unlimited supplies of people they were willing to expend to win that. I mean, they had to. Their fate was on the line,
Yeah.
Now, okay, so if Germany lost because of American industry, you really don't think we could whip factories together and just transfer? Like, we don't have any factory bases, like even our car manufacturers and stuff. You don't think we would be able to turn those over?
Most American-made cars are made in Mexico.
Oh, still, Mexico's on our side, like on our side of the landmass, right?
What are we gonna do? Invade Mexico first?
I don't know. I think Mexico would have to take our side in this.
I just don't. I mean, like I said, if we couldn't win outright in the first few weeks, it would get very bloody for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and you're also fighting on their soil, right?
Hopefully,
if you're going to Russia or
because
China.
if we're not, we're fighting on our soil.
Yeah, which I don't think
neither one of them would, because that's not their goal. Yeah. America is the one who wants to go over and control other nations. Russia sees Ukraine as part of them. China sees Taiwan as part of China. Like they don't have the imperialistic ambitions like we do. At least not to the same extent.
I think they would love to see us collapse, right? So if there's ways they can cause strife amongst our own people, I think that's what they've been doing for 50, 60 years. I think China specifically has just, that's what you see why China, I think they got rid of Cuomo in New York because he wouldn't play ball with China. Like, I really do. I think that's why they got rid of Cuomo in New York. I think he, as bad as he is and as left as he is, there was that list that came out of all the politicians that they had in their pockets and the ones that wouldn't play ball with them. And then they get rid of Cuomo, right? They have Chinese police stations in New York to deal with the Chinese immigrants that come here. So when the Chinese people do something against each other, they don't go to American police. They go to the Chinese police that are police stations in New York. It's the strangest thing. And I think that they intentionally try to cause unrest in America so that we're falling apart. And I think if there ever is a civil war, because people think civil war like it was the first time, and that's not what it would be like. It's more like
the Civil War was not really a civil war, not in the sense it usually is across the globe.
Right. It was unique in that aspect because it was actually like a land divide. Like there was
two separate nations fighting each other.
It was two separate nations fighting each other, where it would be more like insurgency and, you know, things like that if it ever happened in the US. Again, it wouldn't be over geography. It would be idealistic, and there would be people just lighting off pipe bombs and things like that. And I think you would actually get Russia and China feeding information and things like that to the American people, helping them in that situation, just like you have us doing that when you have the overthrowing of other governments all over the world.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, I don't know, man. All right. I guess I can't believe we got stood up tonight. There was really no plan other than talking to this guy. It's kind of rude. I'm not going to book him again either. Because the first time I had him booked, he said yes, and then I was like, all right, I'll confirm the day before, and he didn't confirm. And then I said, all right, look, we'll try to set it up again. October 1st, does that work for you? He said, October 1st is ideal. I can absolutely do it. I talked to him at 2 p.m. today. I said, you're still good, right? Yep, 100%, 8 p.m. Eastern, right? Yeah, looking forward to it. And then
he might have had something, an emergency come up or something. You never know.
Yeah, you'd think a little text or something. So, all right, we're gonna jump over to locals since we're doing one of these shows anyway. You know, we'll have to rework the title and thumbnail. I don't know what the hell we're gonna make this video. I'll be busy before we go. Okay, so let's see what we got coming up. Let's just at least let people know what we got coming up. Thursday is just gonna be us.
Yeah, he might have just checked into the wrong DoubleTree.
Well, Thursday will be us. Nick will be back Thursday. Then Tuesday coming up, we have Mike Pantiel.
Okay.
Then we have on next Thursday, we have
I thought we talked about doing next week's on Monday.
Oh, on Monday. Yeah. It's gonna be a Monday show, not Tuesday. I already confirmed that with him. That's for sure. So next week are you gonna be away for Thursday?
Yeah, but I should be able to do a show maybe from the beach or something. We'll see.
All right, if you can, me and Nick could swing that one. We'll do something. Then no, that's next Thursday. I have Michael Hitchborn and Paul List coming on.
Oh, that will be a good one. I'll make sure to be there.
Yeah. So so next Thursday I have Michael Hitchborn and Paul List coming on. We're going to talk Tolkien and metaphysics. So I met Paul List while I was at the conference. Michael Hitchborn, obviously, I was with, and we had a really awesome conversation at the conference. And I was like, why don't the three of us do something together? So we're going to do that together. So that's next Thursday, and then that's what we got booked so far. I'm gonna start doing. No, I don't want to book 2 guests per week. I'll do 1 guest per week and then leave the other show just us so we could still do our thing, and we'll get one. But I do want to start getting guests on again because it brings new energy to the show, brings new topics to the show. It's like it kind of gives you a new direction to go with things, and you kind of hit these stale times in a show. So we got to bring some new energy in and see where we want to take, like what direction 2025 is going to go. So we're coming up on 2025.
It's crazy.
Yeah, we've been doing this almost 3 years, right?
You have been.
Well, 2021 I started.
You started in November of 21, and then I came on March of 22.
Okay. So it'll be 3 years this March.
Yep.
3 years that we've been doing this March. So
did we rebook Joe?
Oh, I think I have the rebook.
Is he Joe? Was he?
I think he's supposed to come this Thursday. Yeah,
we could do that.
Okay, we'll get Joe McClain this Thursday. You think
You think you're going to make it to 2025?
Maybe we'll discuss that on locals right now.
After we learn about the nickname,
Yeah.
and whatever else there was.
Okay, so let's do that. Father Nix is texting us. I don't know. Okay.
Also, I did add a couple coffee travel mugs to the merch store. So go to shop.avoidingbabylon.com. And mostly that was because I wanted them. So
yeah. All right, guys. Sorry for the slow show today. We tried to give you something, but we're gonna go over to locals and we'll still hang. Maybe we'll pop in on the debate and we'll just see what's going on with that debate. We'll hang over there. It'll be fun. So we're gonna go over to locals. We owe you guys at least that. So anybody that is not subscribed to locals, that's where we go. We usually finally something that's not a t-shirt. Is that what she said? Would you put on there mugs?
Yeah, a couple coffee mugs.
Okay. All right. Yeah. There's no need to apologize. It really wasn't our fault. I mean, we did have a really interesting guest booked for tonight, but he blew us off. So, all right, we'll go.
He
over
probably watched some of our shows today.
I'm worried he saw my tweets today about Israel or something, and he was like,
I don't think that would do it.
I mean, dude, at 2 p.m., he seemed like he was excited to come on. I don't know. And yes, don't be cheap. Subscribe to locals. This is how we keep the lights on over here. It's how we are able to keep bringing you these shows. It's really not easy to keep coming up with original material on the fly, as you guys can see. Just winging a show is not as easy as everybody thinks.
Did we want to do readings from maybe this is something to talk about on locals, but readings from the Golden Legend?
Yeah, I didn't
like a weekly thing.
I didn't. Yeah, I would like to maybe do Sunday with the Saints. I kind of like that idea.
I like that idea too. Yeah,
Sunday with the Saints. Maybe we'll do, and they don't have to be long shows. Like maybe just like a 25, 30 minute. Like I was reading St. Nicholas, and I didn't realize all of the stories you hear about St. Nicholas come from that book.
Most of the stories of the lives of the saints we have come
from that book. So the story of St. Nicholas, the father who was destitute and he was going to sell his daughters into like prostitution, and St. Nicholas goes and throws the gold coin in, and then he's able to have a dowry to propose his daughters for marriage, comes from that book. It's like there's so many good stories in that book, man. It's like and
even those stories, most of them probably existed long before that. It's really, I forget the name of the author, but whoever it was in like the 12th century compiled all these legends into the book.
Yeah,
correct. We're not saying they come solely from this book. We're just saying like that's where you can find them, and that's where they were found for the last 1,000 years, basically.
Yeah, he compiled all the stories of the saints into this book. And if you read even the intro about how this book kind of shaped the lives of the church during this time, it's actually pretty awesome. So,
and we mentioned it before, but St. Ignatius, for instance, anyone who knows the story of St. Ignatius of Loyola knows that he was converted by reading about the lives of the saints while convalescing. Well, when they say that he was reading the lives of the saints, he was reading the Golden Legend. Like that's what got him to convert and become on fire for the faith. So.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I just think the way it's written is awesome. So if you guys don't have that book, it's definitely a good one to bring to your children. Like, and if you're coming up on Advent, it's a good one to read with the kids, one story per night, because they're not that long. You could read them in 20, 25 minutes and you just go through.
Someone says we should send a copy to Pope Francis.
Yeah, right. And speaking of Advent in Italy with Patrick and I, if anybody is interested and wants to go check out my Twitter, and we have all the info for anybody that wants to go. Contact Allie at 775-340-6047 or allie.ontheway@gmail.com, and we'll see you guys over on locals. Song.